Hello and welcome to Bookspot. I'm Earl Weinberg. This time we will continue our reading of Rewards and Fairies by Rudyard Kipling. A Truthful Song. The Bricklayer. I tell this tale, which is strictly true, just by way of convincing you how very little since things were made, things have altered in the building trade. A year ago, come the middle of March, we was building flats near the Marble Arch, when a thin young man with coal-black hair come up to watch us working there. Now there wasn't a trick in brick or stone that this young man hadn't seen or known, nor wasn't a tool from trowel to maul, but this young man could use 'em all. Then up and spoke the plumbers bold, which was laying the pipes for the hot and cold. Since you with us have made so free, will you kindly say what your name might be? The young man kindly answered them, it might be Lot or Methusalem, or it might be Moses, a man I hate, whereas it is Pharaoh, surnamed the Great. Your glazing is new and your plumbing strange, but otherwise I perceive no change, and in less than a month, if you do as I bid, I'd learn you to build me a pyramid. The Sailor. I tell this tale, which is strictly true, just by way of convincing you how very little since things was made, things have altered in the shipwright's trade. In Blackwall Basin yesterday, a China bark refitting lay, when a fat old man with a snow-white hair came up to watch us working there. Now there wasn't a knot which the riggers knew, but the old man made it, and better too. Nor there wasn't a sheet, nor a lift, nor a brace, but the old man knew its lead and place. Then up and spake the caulkers bold, which was packing the pump in the after hold, since you with us have made so free, will you kindly tell us what your name might be? The old man kindly answered them, it might be Japheth, or it might be Shem, or it might be Ham, though his skin was dark, whereas it is Noah commanding the ark. Your wheel is new and your pumps are strange, but otherwise I perceive no change, and in less than a week, if she did not ground, I'd sail this hooker the world around. We tell these tales that are strict as true, just by way of convincing you how very little since things was made, things have changed in our own trade. The Wrong Thing. Dan had gone in for building model boats, but after he had filled the schoolroom with chips, which he expected Una to clear away, they turned him out of doors, and he took all his tools up the hill to Mr. Springett's yard, where he knew he could make as much mess as he chose. Old Mr. Springett was a builder, contractor, and sanitary engineer, and his yard, which opened off the village street, was always full of interesting things. At one end of it was a long loft reached by a ladder, where he kept his iron-bound scaffold planks, tins of paint, pulleys, and odds and ends he had found in old houses. He would sit there by the hour watching his carts as they loaded or unloaded in the yard below, while Dan gouged and grunted at the carpenter's bench near the loft window. Mr. Springett and Dan had always been particular friends, for Mr. Springett was so old he could remember when railways were being made in the southern counties of England, and people were allowed to drive dogs in carts. One hot, still afternoon, the tar paper on the roof smelt like ships. Dan, in his shirt sleeves, was smoothing down a new schooner's bow, and Mr. Springett was talking of barns and houses he had built. He said he never forgot any stick or stone he had ever handled, or any man, woman, or child he had ever met. Just then he was very proud of the village hall at the entrance to the village, which he had finished a few weeks before. "And I don't mind telling you, Master Dan," he said, "that the hall will be my last job top of this mortal earth. I didn't make £10, no, nor yet 5, out of the whole contract, but my name's lettered on the foundation stone, Ralph Springett, builder. And the stone she's bedded on for 4 good feet of concrete, if she shifts any time these 500 years, I'll surely turn in my grave. I told the London architect so when he come down to oversee my work." "What did he say?" Dan was sandpapering the schooner's port bow. "Nothing. The hall ain't more than one of his small jobs for him, but 'tain't small to me, and my name is cut and lettered frontin' the village street. I do hope and pray for time everlasting. You'll want the little round file for that holler in her bow. Who's there?" Mr. Springett turned stiffly in his chair. A long pile of scaffold planks ran down the center of the loft. Dan looked, and he saw Hal of the Draft's tousled head beyond him. "Be you the builder of this village hall?" he asked Mr. Springett. "I be," was the answer, "but if you want a job—" Hal laughed. "No, faith," said he, "only the hall is as good and honest a piece of work as I've ever run a rule over. So, being born hereabouts, and being reckoned a master among masons, and accepted as a master mason, I make bold to pay my brotherly respects to the builder." "Ah, Mr. Springett looked important. "I'd be a bit rusty, but I'll try you." He asked Hal several curious questions, and the answers must have pleased him, for he invited Hal to sit down. Hal moved up, always keeping behind the pile of planks so that only his head showed, and sat down on a trestle in the dark corner at the back of Mr. Springett's desk. He took no notice of Dan, but talked at once to Mr. Springett about bricks and cement and lead and glass, and after a while Dan went on with his work. He knew Mr. Springett was pleased because he tugged his white sandy beard and smoked his pipe in short puffs. The two men seemed to agree about everything, but when grown-ups agree, they interrupt each other almost as much as if they were quarreling. Hal said something about workmen. "Why, that's what I always say," Mr. Springett cried. "A man who can only do one thing, he's but next above fool to the man who can't do nothing. That's where the unions make their mistake." "My thought to the very dot," Dan heard Hal slap his tight-hosed leg. "I've suffered in my time from these same guilds. Unions, do you call 'em? All their precious talk of the mysteries of their trades. Why, what does it come to?" "Nothing. You've just about hit it," said Mr. Springett, and rammed his hot tobacco with his thumb. "Take the art of wood carving," Hal went on. He reached across the planks, grabbed a wooden pallet, and moved his other hand as though he wanted something. Mr. Springett, without a word, passed him one of Dan's broad chisels. "Woodworking, for example. If you can cut wood and have a fair draft of what you mean to do, a heaven's name take chisel and maul and let drive at it, I say. You'll soon find all the mystery, forsooth, of wood carving under your proper hand." Whack came the mallet on the chisel, and a sliver of wood curled up in front of it. Mr. Springett watched like an old raven. "All art is one, man, one," said Hal between whacks, "and to wait on another man to finish out your work ain't no sense," Mr. Springett cut in. "That's what I'm always saying to the boy here." He nodded toward Dan. "That's what I said when I put the new wheel into Brewster's mill in 1872. I reckoned I was millwright enough for the job without bringing a man from Lunnon, and besides, dividing work up eats profits up no bounds." Hal laughed his beautiful deep laugh, and Mr. Springett joined in, till Dan laughed too. "You handle your tools, I can see," said Mr. Springett. "I reckon if you're any way like me, you found yourself hindered by those, guilds, did you call 'em? Unions, we say." "You may say so." Hal pointed to a white scar on his cheekbone. "This is a remembrance from the master watch and foreman of masons on Magdalen Tower, because, please you, I dared to carve stone without their leave. They said a stone had slipped from the cornice by accident." "I know them accidents. There's no way to disprove 'em, and stones ain't the only things that slip," Mr. Springett grunted. Hal went on. "I've seen a scaffold plank keckle and shoe two clever workmen 30 feet onto the cold chancel floor below. And a rope can break. Yes, natural as nature, and lime'll fly up in a man's eye without any breath of wind sometimes," said Mr. Springett. "But who's to show 'twasn't an accident?" "Who do these things?" Dan asked, and straightened his back at the bench as he turned the schooner end for end in the vise to get her counter. "Them which don't wish other men did work no better nor no quicker than they do," growled Mr. Springett. "Don't pinch her so hard in the vise, Master Dan. Put a piece of rag in the jaws or you'll bruise her. More than that," he turned toward Hal, "if a man has his private spite laid up against you, the unions give him his excuse for working it off." "Well, I know it," said Hal. "They never let you go, them spiteful ones. I knowed a plasterer in 1861, down in Wells. He was a Frenchie, a bad enemy he was." I had mine, too. He was an Italian called Benedetto. I met him first at Oxford on Magdalen Tower when I was learning my trade. Or trades, I should say. A bad enemy he was, as you say, but he came to be my singular good friend, said Hal, as he put down the mallet and settled himself comfortably. What might his trade have been? Plasterin'? Mr. Springett asked. Plasterin' of a sort. He worked in stucco, fresco, we call it. Made pictures on plaster. Not but what he had a fine sweep of the hand in drawing. He'd take the long sides of a cloister, trowel on his stuff, and roll out his great all-abroad pictures of saints and croppy-topped trees, quick as a Webster unrolling cloth, almost. Oh, Benedetto could draw, but was a little-minded man, professing to be full of secrets of color and plaster, common tricks, all of 'em. And his one single talk was of how Tom, Dick, or Harry had stole this t'other secret from his art. I know that sort, said Mr. Springett. There's no keeping peace nor making peace with such. They're mostly born and bone idle. True. Even his fellow countrymen laughed at his jealousy. We two came to loggerheads early on Magdalen Tower. I was a youngster then. Maybe I spoke my mind about his work. You should never do that, Mr. Springett shook his head. That sort lay it up against you. True enough. This Benedetto did most specially. Body me, the man lived to hate me, but I always kept my eyes open on a plank or a scaffold. I was mighty glad to be shut of him when he quarreled with his guild foreman and went off, nose in the air, paints under his arm. But, Hal leaned forward, if you hate a man or a man hates you, I know. You're everlasting running across him. Mr. Springett interrupted. Excuse me, sir. He leaned out the window and shouted to a carter who was loading a cart with bricks. Ain't you got no more sense than to heap 'em up that way? He said. Take and throw 100 of 'em off. That's no more than the team can compass. Throw 'em off, I tell you, and make another trip for what's left over. Excuse me, sir. You was saying... I was saying that before the end of the year I went to Bury to strengthen a lead work in the great Abbey east window there. Now that's just one of the things I've never done. But I mind there was a cheap excursion to Chichester in 1879, and I went and watched 'em leading a wonderful fine window in Chichester Cathedral. I stayed watching till 'twas time for us to go back. Dunno as I had 2 drinks perhaps all that day. Hal smiled. At Bury, then, sure enough, I met my enemy Benedetto. He had painted a picture in plaster on the south wall of the refectory, a noble place for a noble thing, a picture of Jonah. Ah, Jonah and his whale. I'd never been as far as Bury. You've worked about a lot, said Mr. Springett, with his eye on the carter below. No, not the whale. It was a picture of Jonah and the pompion that withered. But all that Benedetto had shown was a peevish graybeard huddled up in an angle-edged drapery beneath a pompion on a wooden trellis. This last, being a dead thing, he'd drawn it as 'twere to the life. But fierce old Jonah, bared in the sun, angry even to death that his cold prophecy was disproven, Jonah, ashamed, and already hearing the children of Nineveh running to mock him, that was what Benedetto had not drawn. He'd have better stuck with his whale, then, said Mr. Springett. He'd have done no better with that. He draws the damp cloth off the picture and shows it to me. I was a craftsman, too, you see. 'Tis good, I said, but it goes no deeper than the plaster. What? He says in a whisper. Be thy own judge, Benedetto, I answered. Does it go deeper than the plaster? He reeled against a piece of dry wall. No, he says, and I know it. I could not hate thee more than I have done these 5 years, but if I live, I will try, Hal, I will try. Then he goes away. I pitied him, but I had spoken truth. His picture went no deeper than the plaster. Ah, said Mr. Springett, who had turned quite red. You was talking so fast I didn't understand what you was driving at. I've seen men, good workmen they was, try to do more than they could do, and they couldn't compass it. They knowed it, and it nigh broke their hearts like. You was in your right, of course, sir, to say what you thought of his work, but, if you'll excuse me, was you in your duty? I was wrong to say it, Hal replied. God forgive me, I was young, he was workman enough to know where he failed, but it all came evens in the long run. By the same token, did you ever hear of one Torrigiano, Torresani we called him? Can't say I ever did. Was he a Frenchie like? No, a hectoring, hard-mouthed, long-sworded Italian builder, as vain as a peacock and as strong as a bull. But mark you, a master workman. More than that, he could get his best work out of the worst men. Which is a gift. I had a foreman bricklayer like him once, said Mr. Springett. He used to prod 'em in the back like with a pointing trowel, and they did wonders. I seen our Torrisani lay apprentice down with one buffet and raise him with another to make a mason of him. I worked under him at building a chapel in London, a chapel and a tomb for the king. I never knew kings went to chapel much, said Mr. Springett, but I always hold with a man, don't care who he is, seeing about his own grave before he dies. Tisn't the sort of thing to leave to your family after the will's read. I reckon 'twas a fine vault. None finer in England. This Torrigiano had the contract for it, as you'd say. He picked master craftsmen from all parts, England, France, Italy, the Low Countries, no odds to him so long as they knew their work, and he drove 'em like pigs at Brightland Fair. He called us English all pigs. We suffered it because he was a master in his craft. If he misliked any work that a man had done, with his own great hands he'd rive it out and tear it down before us all. Ah, you pig, you English pig, he'd scream in the dumb wretch's face. You answer me, you look at me, you think at me? Come out with me into the cloisters. I will teach you carving myself. I will gild you all over. But when his passion had blown out, he'd slip his arm round the man's neck and impart knowledge worth gold. 'Twould have done your heart good, Mr. Springett, to see the 200 of us, masons, jewelers, carvers, gilders, iron workers, and the rest, all toiling like cock angels, and this mad Italian hornet fleeing from one next up and down the chapel. Done your heart good, it would. I believe you, said Mr. Springett. In 1854, I mind, the railway was being made into Hastings. There was 2,000 navvies on it, all young, all strong, and I was one of 'em. Oh, dearie me. Excuse me, sir, but was your enemy working with you? Benedetto? Be sure he was. He followed me like a lover. He painted pictures on the chapel ceilings, slung from a chair. Torrigiano made us promise not to fight till the work should be finished. We were both master craftsmen, do you see, and he needed us. None the less, I never went aloft to carve without testing all my ropes and knots each morning. We were never far from each other. Benedetto had sharpened his knife with his sole while he waited for his plaster to dry. I'd hear it where I hung chipping around a pillar head, and we'd nod to each other friendly like. Oh, he was a craftsman, was Benedetto, but his hate spoiled his eye and his hand. I mind the night I had finished the models for the bronze saints round the tomb. Torrigiano embraced me before all the chapel and bade me to supper. I met Benedetto when I came out. He was slavering in the porch like a mad dog. Working himself up to it, said Mr. Springett. Did he have a go at you that night? No, that time he kept his oath to Torrigiano, but I pitied him. Well, now I come to my own follies. I had never thought too little of myself, but after Torrisani had put his arm round my neck, Hal broke into a laugh. I lay there was not much odds twixt me and a cock-sparrow in his pride. I was pretty middlin' young once upon a time, said Mr. Springett. Then you know that a man can't drink and dice and dress fine and keep company above his station, but his work suffers for it, Master Springett. I never held much with dressin' up, but you're right. The worst mistakes I ever made, they was made on a Monday mornin', Mr. Springett answered. We've all been one sort of fool or t'other, Master Dan. Master Dan, take that smallest gouge, or you'll be splitting her sternworks clean out. Can't you see the grain of the wood don't favor a chisel? I'll spare you some of my follies, but there's a man called Brigandine, Bob Brigandine, clerk of the king's ships, a little smooth, bustlin' atomy, as clever as a woman to get work done for nothing, a wonderful smooth-tongued pleader. He made much of me and asked me to draft him out a drawing, a piece of carved and gilt scroll work for the bows of one of the king's ships. The Sovereign was her name. Was she a man of war? Asked Dan. She was a warship, and a woman called Catherine of Castile desired the king to give her the ship for a pleasure ship of her own. I did not know at the time, but she'd been at Bob to get his scroll work done and fitted that the king might see it. I made him a picture in an hour of all of a heat after supper, one great heaving play of dolphins and a Neptune or so reining in webby-footed seahorses, an Arion with his harp high atop them. It was 23 foot long and maybe 9 foot deep, painted and gilt. It must have looked just about fine, said Mr. Springett. That's the curiosity of it. 'Twas bad, rank bad. In my conceit, I must needs show it to Torrigiano in the chapel. He straddles his legs, hunches his knife behind him, and whistles like a stormcock through a sleet tower. Benedetto was behind him. He were never far apart, I told you. That is pig's work, says our master, swine's work. You make any more such things even after your fine court suppers, you shall be sent away. Benedetto licks his lips like a cat. Is it so bad then, master, says he, what a pity. Yes, says Torrigiano, scarcely you could do things so bad. I will condescend to show. He talks to me then and there. No shoutin', no swearin', it was too bad for that, but good memorable counsel, bitten in slowly. Then he sets me to draft out a pair of iron gates, to take, as he said, the taste of my naughty dolphins out of my mouth. Iron's sweet stuff if you don't torture her, and hammered work is all pure, truthful line, with a reason and support for every curve and bar of it. A week at that settled my stomach handsomely. The master let me put the work through the smithy, where I sweated out more of my foolish pride. Good stuff is good iron, said Mr. Springett. I done a pair of lodge gates once in 1863. Oh, I forgot to say that Bob Brigandine whipped away my draft to the ship's scrollwork and would not give it back to me to redraw. He said 'twould do well enough. Howsoever, my lawful work kept me too busied to remember him. Body me, but I worked that winter upon the gates and the bronzes for the tomb like I'd never worked before. I was leaner than a lath, but I lived then. Hal looked at Mr. Springett with his wise, crinkled-up eyes, and the old man smiled back. Ouch! Dan cried. He'd been hollowing out the schooner's afterdeck. The little gouge had slipped and gashed the ball of his left thumb, an ugly triangular tear. That came of not steadying your wrist, said Hal calmly. Don't bleed over the wood. Do your work with your heart's blood, but no need to let it show. He rose and peered into a corner of the loft. Mr. Springett had risen too and swept down a ball of cobwebs from a rafter. Clap on that, was all he said, and put your handkerchief atop. 'Twill cake over in a minute. It don't hurt now, do it. No, said Dan indignantly. You know it's happened lots of times. I'll tie it up myself. Go on, sir. And it'll happen 100 times more, said Hal with a friendly nod as he sat down again. But he did not go on till Dan's hand was tied up properly. Then he said, one dark December day, too dark to judge color, we was all sittin' and talkin' round the fires in the chapel. You heard good talk there. When Bob Brigandine bustles in, and Hal, you're sent for, he squeals. I was at Torrigiano's feet on a pile of putlocks, as I might be here, toasted a herring on my knife's point. 'Twas the one English thing our master liked, salt herring. I'm busy about my art, I calls. Art, says Bob. What's art compared to your scroll work for the sovereign? Come. Be sure your sins will find you out, said Torrigiano. Go with him and see. As I followed Bob out, I was aware of Benedetto like a black spot when the eyes are tired, sliding up behind me. Bob hurries through the streets in the raw fog, slips into a doorway, upstairs, along passages, and at last thrusts me into a little cold room vilely hung with Flemish tapestries, and no furnishings except a table and my draft of the sovereign's scroll work. Here he leaves me. Presently in comes a dark, long-nosed man in a fur cap. Master Harry Daw, said he. The same, I says. Where a plague has Bob Brigandine gone? His thin eyebrows surged up a piece and come down again a stiff bar. He went to the king, he said. All one. What's your pleasure with me? I says, shiverin', for it was mortal cold. He lays his hand flat on my draft. Master Daw, he says, do you know the present price of gold leaf for all this wicked gilding of yours? By that I guessed he was some cheese-paring clerk or other out of the king's ships, so I give him the price, I forget it now, but it worked out to £30, carved, gilt, and fitted in place. £30, he said, as though I had pulled a tooth of him. You talk as though £30 was to be had for the asking. None the less, he says, your draft's a fine piece of work. I'd been looking at it ever since I came in, and 'twas viler ever than I judged it at first. My eye and hand had been purified the past months, you see, by my ironwork. I could do it better now, I said. The more I studied my squabby Neptunes, the less I liked 'em, and Arion was a pure flaming shame atop the unbalanced dolphins. I doubt it will be fresh expense to draft it again, he says. Bob never paid me for the first draft. I lay he'll never pay me for the second. 'Twill cost the king nothing if I redraw it, I says. There's a woman wishes it to be done quickly, he says. We'll stick to your first draft, Master Daw, but £30 is £30. You must make it less. And all the while the faults in my draft leaped out and hit me between the eyes. At any cost, I thinks to myself, I must get it back and redraft it. He grunts at me impatiently, and a splendid thought comes to me, which shall save me. By the same token, 'twas quite honest. They ain't always, said Mr. Springett. How'd you get out of it? By the truth, I says to Master Furcap, as I might say to you here, I'll tell you something, since you seem a knowledgeable man. Is the sovereign to lie in Thames River all her days, or will she take to the high seas? Oh, he says quickly, the king keeps no cats that don't catch mice. She must sail the seas, Master Daw. She'll be hired to merchants for the trade. She'll be out in all shapes of weather. Does that make any odds? Why, then, says I, the first heavy sea she sticks her nose into will claw half that scroll work off, and the next will finish it. If she's meant for a pleasure ship, give me my draft again, and I'll posture you a pretty light piece of scroll work, good, cheap. If she's meant for the open seas, pitch the draft into the fire. She can never carry that weight on her bows. He looks at me squintlin' and plucks his underlip. Is this your honest, unswayed opinion? He says. Body o' me, ask about, I says. Any seaman would tell you it's true. I'm advising you against my own profit, but why I do so is my own concern. Not altogether, he says. It's some of mine. You've saved me £30, Master Daw, and you've given me good arguments to use against a willful woman that wants my fine new ship for her own toy. Will not have any scroll work. His face shined with pure joy. And we'll find the secret behind the pure joy next time.